Hi, it's James Taylor here. If you're doing any kind of creative work, at various points you're going to come up against having creative blocks. They may last a couple of hours, they may last a couple of days, they may even last a couple of weeks. So you need to have some strategies in your back pocket to break out of these and to unblock these kind of creative blocks that you may have at different points in your creative journey. So I'm going to talk to you about the 10 main ways, just the 10 main kind of strategies you can use to unblock any kind of issues you're having around creativity or creating. So the very first one, and it's actually one that's actually a lot of fun to do if you're kind of working on something, but you've kind of hit this bit of a roadblock, is what we call creative pairs. And this is where you find someone that you can work with for a period of time. It may even just be for a day, just as a way to be able to kind of unblock and get things flowing freely again. So we all know about the ideas of creative pairs, you know, Lennon and McCartney, Bacharach and David. There's something that happens when you work with an individual. It kind of pushes you out of your usual comfort zone and you start to create in slightly different ways. So that's one of the first things you can do. Find someone that you can, maybe if you're a songwriter, you can write with. If you're doing other types of writing, maybe just, you know, if you're a traditional kind of novel writer, maybe work on some script writing work with someone else. If you're a musician and you're focused on in the studio about doing this album, then maybe try and bring in some other people to work with on it to help you. This idea of creative pairs. So that's the first one. The second one is this idea of movement. After a while, if you're doing many types of creative work, you're going to be often sitting at one place and sitting and doing one place for prolonged periods of time. And there comes a point where you probably just want to get up and actually move about, going for long walks, just kind of getting out there and doing something physical. It doesn't have to be like super high energy, but just getting yourself moving again. One of the most fascinating things, if you look into creativity and when you're most likely to have those aha moments, is often when you're doing something slightly physical as well. So you're walking, or you're out and about, you know, even having like cold showers and things, just kind of give you that bit of a blast. So that's the second way, this idea of movement. The third strategy you can employ is what we call creative batching. So if you're struggling to write that book or work on that song, because maybe what you're having to do is every morning you're having to get up and write a little bit, you know, write a couple of 500 words for that particular book that you're working on, what can help is if you just can batch the time. So if you can put in your diary a prolonged period of time, maybe it's a week or 2 weeks, or if it's that time where you were thinking about initially going on vacation, rather than necessarily just kind of going and doing something, just going and sitting on the beach for a week, actually block out time where you're going to work on your creative projects. So we call it batching, trying to batch that time. So rather than piecemeal doing little by little, which is a strategy and can absolutely work, but if you're finding that's not really working and you just can't get really kind of moving with it, then try and take 7 to 10 days where you're focused on just creating and just working on this project that you're trying to bring to fruition. The fourth strategy sounds really simple, and it's sleep. Get enough sleep. Arianna Huffington just wrote a book recently about the importance of sleep and how we are less creative and we make worse decisions if we're just tired and we're just not getting enough sleep. So feel free to take some time to just kind of catch up on that sleep, to also, rather than if you're the kind of person where you normally you wake up and you're kind of straight out making coffee, try and take a little bit of time where you wake up and before you kind of immediately kind of get out of bed, give yourself like 10-15 minutes where it's kind of a daydream state where you're kind of going in and out of doing this. What you'll find is that you'll often have some new ideas that will come from that period of time, this half-wake sleep kind of state that we have. So, but the core thing to think about here on this strategy is ensure that you're getting enough sleep. If you're a little bit sleep deprived, maybe you're having to do a day gig, you're having to work during the day, and then in the evenings is when you're writing or you're songwriting or you're working on that business idea, it's fine to take a couple of days out or a weekend and just catch up on that sleep and just get some of that proper rest that you need. The fifth strategy you can employ to unblock any creative blocks that you're having is to travel. And when I say travel, I don't necessarily mean just kind of getting on a plane and going to Asia and traveling for 3 months. Something as simple as going to a neighborhood that you don't normally go to, or going to another town and maybe going to a museum for something that you wouldn't normally think about. What you're doing there is you're getting new influences, you're getting new inputs into what you're doing, and your brain is having to make new connections, make new neural pathways as a result of that. So try and travel a little bit. It doesn't have to be far. It could be into the next state, the next city, a neighborhood that you don't go to. Try not to go to somewhere that's like very similar to the kind of place that you live and where you work in just now. Try and break out and break that pattern. The sixth strategy is one I really love, and it's this idea of copying. Now, normally when you hear about copying something artistic, that normally sounds like a bad thing, but there's a time and a place, and it can be really useful. So if you're really struggling, let's say if you're a writer, you're really struggling to work on something, take some time away and choose maybe 2 or 3 writers who you really admire, and write in the style of them, even if it's 1,000 words or 500 words. What that will do is it'll just kind of break you out a little bit and from the usual kind of patterns. What we're trying to do, like a pattern interrupt here. If you're having creative blocks, if you're a musician, then maybe listen to a Beatles song and say, okay, I'm going to write a song in the style of Lennon and McCartney, or you've heard this other songwriter, you think, that's quite interesting, and just kind of push yourself out, write a song in the style of someone else. So copy to a certain extent. And what it will do is, while the end work that you're going to look to do, your bigger project, is not going to be in that style, it will just going to break you out, and it will maybe allow you to think about and approach the challenges and the problems and the block you're having in a slightly different way. The seventh strategy is what we call streaming. So rather than what is often the case when you're doing kind of creative work, where you're creating and you're editing at the same time, try and just kind of stop that. As things progress, what will often happen, as actually you get more experience, you're almost creating and editing at the same time. But however, if you find there's a bit of a block in the work that you're doing, try and just look to do some stream of consciousness stuff. So where you're saying, I'm not going to edit this, I'm just going to get some stuff out down the page. This is where people like Julia Cameron, she talked about her morning pages, the morning journal, is very important, because what it's doing is it's just allowing your brain to flex in a different way, and kind of making you kind of work your mind in a slightly different way. So this idea of streaming, getting stuff down the page, it could be in songwriting, it could be even if you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of stuck on something just now. Just set yourself a task. I'm going to write 10 new business ideas every day, even though it's not maybe related to the project and the business that you're working on, the startup that you're working on. Just the act of streaming, of getting ideas onto the page and getting them written down, is really important. Our next strategy is something I often suggest. If I see someone that's struggling, they're kind of blocked in the work that they're doing, and their mind is very fragmented, and they're going in different directions. And one of the things I ask them to do is take a bit of a media diet. So stop Facebook, stop Twitter, cut out all your media consumption, and just unplug. Take some time where you're just not taking in all this new information all the time, and you can just start to allow your mind to rest a little bit, so it's not continually having to bring in new data, new information all the time. And that will create a slight void, and that void may be uncomfortable for you if you're not used to doing it. But what can often come from that void is you get to take some time where you're not having being obsessed with Facebook and seeing this thing and then following that and picking up this magazine. Is your mind itself, your creative part, actually has to take a step up and actually has to do the work, and then you can often generate some great ideas from that. The penultimate strategy on how to overcome any kind of creative blocks you're having is to switch mediums. So if you're a writer, try working in another art form for a while. It could be songwriting, it could be painting. Even if you're not an artist or a painter and you're not skilled in those other mediums, the process of just switching mediums for a little bit, just to so when you come back to your main medium, the thing that you do best, you're coming at it from a slightly different perspective as well. So if you're a musician who's kind of getting stuck on this song, you're struggling to kind of get this thing, take some time out, go and paint. Come up with ideas for new products, as entrepreneurial ideas. Go and paint. Go and do something else that switches you out and moves your medium around. This is just a great way. And once again, the point of you doing these things is not to become great at another art form, another medium. The point is to unblock you and just to get those creative juices going again. And then the final strategy is a very, very simple one. It's just to relax, to take a breath, to realize that there's going to be times in your life where those creative juices won't be flowing, and that's fine. There's going to be times in your life where all those ideas, they're just not kind of popping for whatever reason. I've given you some other strategies to help think about that, but don't get stressed, because the more stressed about it you get, the less likely you're going to be able to unblock and allow those ideas to flow really smoothly. So I hope those strategies have been useful to you. I would love to hear your comments. Please leave the comments below. If you're watching this somewhere else apart from jamestaylor.me, I would love if you go to the website www.jamestaylor.me and leave your comments there. Hi, it's James here. Did you enjoy that episode? If so, there's two things that we can do to continue the journey together. Firstly, I would love if you to subscribe, give us 5 stars and leave a comment. Secondly, if you go to jamestaylor.me and enter your name and email address, I'm going to send you some free goodies all around creativity and innovation. Look forward to continuing the journey together.